It has been far too long since we have done a couple of different things here on this channel. It's been almost 2 months since we have done a build of any kind, and it has been over a year since I've done any kind of water cooling project at all. This is the Cooling Master Masterframe 700, and we opened it and put it together on the channel a couple of weeks ago, and it is the perfect start to a really awesome looking water cooling project, which is what we are doing today. Be Quiet introduces a new way to keep your PC build cool, silent, and looking fresh. Meet the Silent Base 802, available in black or white, windowed, or silence focused. Each case comes with interchangeable top and side panels, a fully kitted out front I/O selection, 3 Pure Wings fans, and a completely modular interior layout that lets you even run the system inverted. With support for up to 420mm radiators or a full complement of hard drives, make the Silent Base the start of your next PC build. Check out the link below or head to bequiet.com to learn more. I honestly kind of struggled with which components to include here in this build. I had a lot of stuff in the office that I haven't yet used, and I wanted to make sure that they got some screen time and I got a chance to test them out. So, hence, as a reason why we are trying the new NZXT N7B550 motherboard. Now, you guys are probably familiar with this. It came out maybe about a month ago now, and it uses the same kind of aesthetic that NZXT has been using on all of their motherboards for the past few years. However, it's white. So it's going to be going in a black case, and we're going to have to try to figure out a way to make sure that that white is integrated into the mostly black aesthetic. And I think, honestly, it might be kind of cool to see like a pop of white in the middle of this chassis with everything else being black and maybe chrome or something along those lines. Now, starting out with that motherboard means that putting in a Ryzen 9 5950X is not really reasonable. Not only is that processor still basically impossible to find on the market, but if you're building with it, you're not going to be putting it in a B550 board, even though you probably could. And this is a much better choice. This is a Ryzen 7 5800X. And not only is it readily available on the market, but it actually should be a really good complement to the B550 board. Powering everything, we're going to have EVGA's 750G5 power supply. This is an 80+ gold rated fully modular unit from EVGA, always reliable. For storage, we're going with a single 1TB NVMe drive from Accelerate. This is PNY's gaming brand. This is a Gen 4 SSD, so it should give us some blazing read and write speeds. And for the purposes of this build, 1TB of storage should be plenty. For memory, Corsair provided their brand new Vengeance RGB Pro SL. This is a low profile version of their Vengeance RGB Pro modules, so they will fit much better in small form factor builds. Here, we're obviously not dealing with a huge space constraint because it's basically going to be an open air chassis. At the same time, these are going to look pretty slick with that RGB light bar across the top and that really nice diffuser. And my camera won't focus. There we go. But it's a 4x8 gig kit, DDR4 3600, and should provide us plenty of speed and plenty of gaming oomph. We're going to use these Corsair fans that we unboxed on a live stream actually on the channel a few weeks ago, and at that time I wasn't allowed to tell you the name, so I kind of put a little tape over them, and now I realize that that tape is paper and that I'll never get these labels off. But these are the Corsair SP120 RGB Elite fans, and they sent me over a few packs of them, and they should do really well here. So I am excited to use these because I've never even opened that box yet. For graphics, we're going with ASUS's RG Strix version of the RTX 3060. Now, you might say to yourself, why an RTX 3060 in a full water-cooled build? Well, I haven't yet built with this card. I want to try it out, and I want the flexibility to be able to change out this card for something else. So we're actually not going to be water cooling this particular version. I'm thinking that what I'm going to do is build this system with the 5800X and the RTX 3060, see how it performs, and then perhaps at a later time swap in a more powerful card, get the full loop going, including the CPU and the GPU, and then leave that as kind of a showpiece or something like that. But I wanted to try out the 3060. This card is going to look really good in the build because the Strix coolers look pretty sick. And like I said, I haven't yet had it out of the box. So yeah, should be a good time. Now let's get to the water cooling parts. I didn't have a water cooling sponsor for this build. I didn't reach out to anybody to help out with this project. I kind of did it last minute, and I wanted to just use what I had here in the office, especially featuring stuff that I haven't used before. like this. This is EK's Quantum Kinetic Combo Unit. It is a 360 millimeter reservoir with an integrated pump at the bottom. Now, the pump does stick out the back of the unit, which means that if we mount it here, we're going to have to cut a hole so that that pump can feed through and we don't have any fitment issues. What I am thinking is that we're going to use this Corsair XR5360 radiator on one of these wings, and then the 360 millimeter reservoir on the other wing. And so it's going to be asymmetrical, but I want to see how that looks. I've never done a build like that before, and I mean, why not? Give it a try, right? The block that we're going to be using is EK's Quantum Velocity block for AMD processors. Nothing special here. I think I've used this before. Well, it says AMD, so I've probably used it before. But besides that, there's not a whole lot that we're going to be using here. Tubing and fittings I haven't yet chosen yet. But we're going to put this together first into that chassis and then kind of work our way from there, see how far we get today. And then this will probably be a two-parter. Sorry, guys, where we do the tubing runs and the reveal in the next video. But the first thing I have to do is fit this reservoir to the case, decide which side I want it to go on, and then use a Dremel to cut the hole. So let's get to it. So here is our finished cut. There's some paint missing around the edges where I had to grind it down to make sure that it wasn't like razor sharp. But actually all the edges now are good. And this is the thing that's going to have to fit in here. And I gave it a little bit of wiggle room just in case we needed to move it at all to make it fit with our setup. So even though we're missing some paint here, I'm not going to repaint this because this whole thing is going to be covered and you're not going to see it at all. So I'm happy with the way this came out. It fits well without too much play, but enough for us to move it up and down or side to side a little bit if we need to. And let's keep going. All right, that came out great. Now it looks weird. The top looks unlevel, but this piece is actually just like slanted up. So the mount is level and flush. Everything came out good here. Mount's really nice and tight, and this should go really well. Now, one thing that I am gonna have to work around is the fact that a lot of the ports here are on the bottom, and this is where the GPU or PCIe expansion goes. So for tube runs, we're probably gonna have to go like up and over, and then back to the top for the return. But we'll work on that. That's not really an obstacle. We could definitely overcome that. So we're gonna have our radiator there and our motherboard there. I gotta find standoffs because if you guys unbox this case with me, you remember that there were no standoffs in the box, which kind of sucks. So I have to go get some standoffs, put the motherboard in, put the radiator in, and then we'll take a look and see where we're at for the day. I was looking through my highly organized box of screws here, and I found 4 standoffs mismatched. So I found a pair, another pair. So Man, I'm gonna have to go and dig through some cases or something. Cooler Master, you bunch of jerks making me do all this. Here we are at check-in point, and we've got the motherboard mounted, found some standoffs finally, and also got that EK velocity block on there. I'm gonna have to do something with the RGB cable. It'll probably run like up this way and in between there and then down, because the header is down here. So I'll probably have to make like or use a splitter or an extender or something like that. But the motherboard is in. It looks really good. I really like the way NZXT used this shielding. I know it's not to everybody's taste, but it looks pretty cool. So, and we also have our M.2 underneath here as well. On to radiator. I've discovered something interesting. So the Corsair radiator comes with mounting screws that are supposed to be used through a case panel into a radiator. And unfortunately, because this material is not the same thickness as a normal case top panel would be, which is pretty thin, this is actually pretty substantial steel. So unfortunately, there's not enough length to this screw to go through here and catch the threads on the radiator. So now I need to find these screws, but maybe just a little bit longer. Not a big deal, but still another little hiccup. So unfortunately, here is probably as far as we can go today, guys. It's actually getting a little bit late, and I got to get this video edited and uploaded for you guys. But we made some good progress here, because I've actually been sitting here once I got everything together and kind of looking at it and trying to figure out what we're going to do with our runs. And it's given me some time to kind of think it over. Now, you'll see that I actually mounted this radiator with the ports at the bottom. And the reason that I did that is because of what we talked about earlier with the ports at the bottom of the reservoir. So because the tubing on the reservoir is going to have to run up and across, I figure it might look cool if we have both of these run up and across. So we're going to have the inlet and the outlet in the radiator both running up and across to different areas. I haven't figured that out yet. And then instead of using the top mounted inlet port on the reservoir, we're actually going to use the bottom mounted inlet port in the reservoir. So we're going to have, again, two tubes running up and over. So hopefully that gives it some amount of symmetry, even though with the radiator on one side and the reservoir on the other, it doesn't really balance right now. I think once it's all done, it's going to look really neat. So now I have to figure out my fittings, and I have to figure out exactly where I want the tubes to go, and we'll finish it up in the next video. Also, maybe I get some cables or something. I think that would look pretty cool too. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. This is going to be a really fun project. I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for the next one. Get subscribed if you are not already. I will see you next week.